This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. This is Ken Quigley from Keystroke. Thank you for attending. We're going to be covering today Link2calendar. Link2calendar was our first product in the Linktivity suites over the last couple of years. Based on the manner in which we expanded the family of products, we went through a rebranding and went from Book to Act over to Linktivity. So this product is now known as Link to Act, and it's kind of appropriate that I went through a fair bit of rebranding because we had to go through a number of iterations as the Act Web API kind of evolved. But before I get into that, I want to just do a couple of housekeeping things. I will not subject you to this ongoing video, but I do want to mention that this is a GoToMeeting session, so it is possible to enable your camera. We ask, because this is being recorded, that you do not, because it adjusts the screen to allow for viewing of the camera, so please do not enable your camera. And secondly, that this will be recorded. And just scroll down here from the homepage, and under Keystroke training videos, and then Keystroke product videos. You'll be able to find it down here. Okay, we typically have them posted by the next day. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to go to the linktivity.net website. As you can see, we've got link to list, link to events, link to calendars front and center, link to forms, and then the as yet unreleased link to quotes. Okay, so the first thing, want to kind of give a very brief history of how Link2calendar came to be. Back in March of 2019, I was down in Arizona visiting SwiftPage, and it was my first visit with Chad Ruff, who'd just recently been hired, and he had asked us to build a Calendly integration. Okay, and if anyone's familiar with Calendly, it's probably the leading calendar integration product for CRMs. Now, we viewed the service and quickly realized that adding the cost of an integration on top of Calendly's, I wouldn't call them high rates, but certainly above what we wanted to charge. They're typically $8 and $12 per user. We just didn't think that would be commercially viable in the Act market to be charging, say, $2 or $3 to $5 on top of that. So we decided to basically just build the whole thing, from scratch for Act users using the API. So it wasn't really an integration so much as a freestanding calendar link service that worked with the Act Web API. Okay, this, as I said, the service back then was known as Book to Act, and the first year, I'm not going to lie, was challenging. It was character building. The API, the Act API was going through a lot of changes, and those mentions, they managed to break our product pretty much on a monthly basis as they would come out with new releases. So it was really kind of difficult to keep the momentum going. But fast forward to today, the user base has grown considerably, and many changes have been made to what is now known as Link2calendar, and the API mercifully is stabilized. And in fact, our team, our CTO, just recently developed the ability and put it into a compiled installer where we can run the 64-bit and the 32-bit API right beside each other on the same server as Act. Now, that may not seem like a big galloping deal to anyone that hasn't tried to configure it as such, but SwiftPage had said that this was impossible, and we when we got it done, we sent over the instructions, and we're waiting for them to roll it out, and hopefully in the next month or so. The reason we want them to deliver it is because that we want it to be supported by future updates as well. We don't want our version being blown up by every single update. Okay, I already experienced a lot of that in 2019. Okay, so I'd like to begin our feature tour with the customer-facing experience. Okay, so instead of kind of getting into the settings, I just want to, show you what your customers will see when they come to visit your site. So I'm going to just quickly go to keystroke.ca, and I'm going to go to our About Us page. Click here. And scroll down and just show you one way in which you can surface the link. So we've got our roster here, and right at the top, I've got book a time with me. Okay. Now, this always takes about 5 to 10 seconds because it's accessing your database in real time through the API. Okay, now the first message, this was by popular request. We surfaced this message to remind people that the time zone is currently set to Eastern Standard Time, okay? Even though we put this up here, okay, we didn't want to run the issue of having to, constantly calibrate based on whatever time zone people were viewing it in. So this allowed people to kind of click OK, say, yes, well, that isn't the time zone I'm in, and be able to select the time zone they're in and have it automatically adjust for the time. Believe it or not, before we put that in, people were booking the wrong times consistently. So we've surfaced this little message, okay? Now, this is the availability that I have over the next couple of days. Now, a couple of things to point out. Obviously, it's going to show you 1 week at a time, okay? And you can click on next week, previous week. But when you have the option, which I'll show you later, when you've got the option where you enable the activities for today, because not a lot of people necessarily want you to show, to have people book an event in the same day you're having it, okay? Because that might be insufficient notice. What this does, though, is it will actually show the availability of times in that same day that have already expired, okay? And there's not much we can do about that. So that's the only little caveat, is when you enable same day ability to book appointments, you're gonna have that one little anomaly, okay? So in this case, you can see that had a few appointments here, and because actually, I'll show you my calendar here over on the cloud, okay? Okay, this appointment is showing that I've cleared it, so now it's showing it as available. But you can see here that I've got this cleared and this cleared. The only other appointment is for this time, and this time. And when we go back, you can see that those times are respected. Okay, I've got my 3 o'clock is missing. Okay, the 12 o'clock is missing, and then the 3 o'clock that we're currently in is missing. So this is showing me my times. Okay. Now, putting yourself in the position of my customer a second, you can view the availability instantly in a selected time for, let's say, Friday morning, okay? And I've selected to display my availability in 30-minute increments. You can do it in an hour, but because I am selecting a phone call, I don't want to be presumptuous and say I'm going to be on the phone with someone for an hour. So I've selected 30-minute increments, okay? So now I'm looking at my time slot, and I want to, and I'm going to kind of zip past this part because a lot of these things haven't changed in a little while, and I want to kind of get to the new features, okay? So now I could see that 9:30 is available. So I'm going to select 9:30, okay? And that pops this screen. So what I'm going to do, since we all have ACT users here, Chris Huffman, and I'm going to say keystroke group, email, chris.huffman@keystroke.ca, and then 416-499-3090, okay? The type of appointment, okay? I've selected, I'm gonna show you later, I've selected 2 types of activities to allow people to click, okay? Obviously, I don't wanna select meetings or appointments or things like that because I don't wanna necessarily have people telling me I'm gonna have to drive around the city, okay? So I'm gonna select call, and the description will be to discuss Link2calendar, okay? Okay, what are the rates and wholesale costs? Okay, now I'm going to set the priority to high or medium. Let's go high. And I'm going to click on create appointment. Now, at this point, and this is the same thing that you saw when you were when we were signing everyone up using Link to Events, is that you've got the opportunity to download an ICS file, okay? So this ICS file, obviously we can't send them necessarily ATVs or anything like that. So what we've done is we've just enabled the ability right here, click download the ICS file, it goes into the calendar, and suddenly both of you guys have it in the calendar. So now let's take a look at what I have happened here, okay? Now, the very first thing I got is a notification instantly of this appointment, Okay, so that's nice. I get notified instantly, and then I can scroll down. And what I did is I forward Chris Huffman to my Gmail account so that I can show you that they're getting the invitation as well. So in this case, Chris Huffman got notified instantly. I got notified instantly. Both people are getting confirmations of the appointment. Okay, so that's kind of nice in that you don't have to sit there and wonder. You get an instant notification. Now, let's bring this on over, bring my calendar back. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on F5, and now you can see the appointment being created here. Okay, so the appointment was created instantly, the notifications were instant, okay, and that's one of the benefits of going through the API. There's no SDK connections requiring syncs or anything like that. It's instant to your master database. Okay, back through that. So it's a really, really simple workflow that people get notified on both sides, okay, and the integration with Act is seamless and instant. Okay, so let me just pause for a quick second to see if there are any questions on this kind of end user front.
Not so far, nothing in the chat.
Okay, very good. Okay, so a lot of this, if you haven't seen the product before, this is great, this is new. However, a lot of these features, as I just showed you, have been pretty much unchanged for the last little while. So let's show you some things that have changed. Now, anytime that you've got one person where you're the only person, sole proprietor managing your own calendar, it's pretty simple. Okay, you don't have to account for anyone else's time. You are the business. However, in many people's cases, in many companies' cases, you're going to have a number of people in sales, a number of people in admin, a number of people in support. So what you're going to want to do, what you're going to want to offer your customers is the ability to, kind of display everyone's availability. Because a lot of times, let's say our support customers, they're calling in and they don't care they may not even know the name of a support person. What they want to know is what's the earliest appointment they can get. So what we did is we built a feature called Teams, okay? But I'm going to pause because I got a couple of questions. Ken is going to act on the cloud. It looks like this. Okay, so Dwayne, just to explain, this is in our Azure environment. Okay, so this is not local. What I'm showing you is on my laptop. The calendar that I dragged over is from our Azure cloud environment. It's not Act Cloud, but it's a hosted environment, and our API is on the Azure cloud. Okay. Okay. So that's, and then Paul asked, can we modify the appointment notice form that's sent to the people? No, that we've made that to be very, very basic and boring. Okay, very, very text-based, because we wanted to hit everyone's inbox. And we ran into this a lot of the times when we were promoting opt-in manager. Everyone wanted to add HTML things. It's like, no. We need it to be 100% deliverable, so we're sticking with text. Okay, so I think I've covered most of the questions there, so let's get back now. Okay, so the next stage was to build teams. So I'm going to show you from the vantage point of the user experience. Okay, and I'm going to click on About and Contact Us. Now, I just recently added this to our website, but let's imagine that someone wants to speak to a salesperson. They're interested in our products, but they don't know myself or Sylvia or Paul or James, so they just want to speak to someone in sales. So what we've done is they can come here and they can click on Sales. Okay, and now what it's going to do, it's going to load a team calendar. It's going to look exactly the same until you start drilling down and you can see everyone's availability. Okay, so now, as I said, this looks exactly like what I showed you before, but now what happens when I click on a time? It will show you all the people that are available for that time. So in this case, here's James, here's Paul. Okay, if I select another time, I'm going to keep, let's see here. Okay, I click another time and now Sylvia's available. Okay, and now here's all four of us. Okay, and you can have little descriptions. So you've got their titles. You'll be able to call them if you've got some software-enabled call driver. You can email them, and then you can even put in a little description. Okay, so James is our AMA specialist. Paul is our desktop specialist. Sylvia, this is very important where we want people maybe that are checking to see if there is a French sales rep, they can do so. And then of course, if they find out that I'm available and I have no discernible skills whatsoever. So obviously they're going to pick one of the first three. If they decide to pick, say, James, they click here and they get the exact same screen as they had before. But what they're doing is now they're enabling, without having to kind of find anyone or find each person's individual link. Okay, what they've done is they've selected the first available person. They go through. I'm not going to create an appointment with James, but they can go through the exact same steps as I already demonstrated, and boom, they'll get connected with James, and he'll know to follow up. Now, James very well can pass that on to someone else, okay, if he's not able to make that appointment. But what we've done is we've surfaced everyone's availability, and that person has picked the earliest mutually convenient time between us and them. Okay, and that's really the power of Teams. Imagine in just a standard use case internally. I mean, sales is certainly important, but one of the bigger ones that we want to deploy it with is support. Okay, someone calling in and they've got an act that won't launch or some problems, they're not going to care about which tech support rep that they're going to deal with. They just want to deal with one of them at the earliest possible opportunity. And this allows us to surface everyone. And if there is a preference, they've got the opportunity to select such. Okay, so this is something that took a fair bit of time to build because we had all kinds of different preference issues and competing calendars, but now it's working, it's tested, it's been vetted for weeks now, and we're quite proud and pleased to display it now. Okay, but that's the customer experience. And as I said, once you get to this, it's exactly like what I showed you the first time for the individual experience, so we're not going to go through that again. Okay, but what I want to do is I want to show you what's different from the back end standpoint. So you've seen how it works. It's pretty much as you would expect. It's instant, it's fully integrated. So let's kind of go through and see what we as a both a record manager, a user, or a subscriber, as well as a reseller, okay, can do on the back end to manage both our accounts and other people's. So the first thing is I'm going to go to linktivity.net and I'm going to click on my account. Okay, logs in. We're going to be dressing up this page as well, a little bit boring. Click on login. Okay, now at this point, you've got all the products, even if you don't have a subscription to them. Okay, you've got all the products here: link to calendar, link to events, link to forms, link to list, link to quotes, and we also, which isn't out yet, but we've got it in kind of like in the last stage of beta. And then next month we hope to be releasing link to docs. Okay, more on that later. So the first thing is you want to go to your API settings. Okay, now you're obviously not going to have to do this every time. This is just during the initial setup. And we've put in our API here, the database name, my login name, and my password. Obviously the password isn't surfaced. And then once you set this up, you click on save and then test connection. Okay, if you're at all unsure about your API settings, we do have a utility up here called testapi.kqc.ca, and you can go through it, and if it works here, it will work inside our utility here. Okay, just so that you don't feel that you have to kind of use our service within Linktivity to test either yours or your customer's API. Okay, the next thing is general settings. General, okay, so the name and email address. Only reason that we've got these is that two of the services, including Link to Calendar and the Link to Events that you signed up for this event with, use ICS files. Anytime you're using an ICS file, it's obviously got to have a source email and a name, so we have people put that in there. The overriding logo that will kind of supersede all other images unless you select them for individual services can be put in here. So if you don't put in another logo in some of the other individual services, this will be the one that gets surfaced. Okay, so we just set up kind of a default so that if you don't select otherwise, this one will be displayed. And then the calendar settings, fairly straightforward. What time zone are you in, and what date format? I mean, to a lot of the people on this call, that may seem obscure, but the United States has month, day, year. Canada, Commonwealth countries often will have big, bigger, biggest. So they'll have day, month, year. So this allows you to go with whatever preference you are. Even though we are Canadian, we prefer month, day, year as well. Okay. The next one is manage subscriptions. Now, I'm just going to show you this because this is the same for all of our Linktivity services. But one of the things that you're going to see here, now obviously you have to own the company to see add NFR and add subscriptions, which only Vic and I will have access to. But otherwise, you're going to see add subscriptions here at the bottom. Okay. Now, what's easy is you just click on add subscriptions. And for those that participated in the, I'm just going to click on cancel because I skipped over something. Okay, if you are logged in as a wholesaler or a reseller, you're going to see this green sentence going across the top. A discount rate has been applied to your account. All products now receive a 25% discount. If you do not see that, please contact Vic or myself and we'll make sure that you're added. It just basically means that you weren't set up as a reseller when we set up our database of users, okay? We spent some time over the last couple of weeks synchronizing the keystroke reseller list across our 3 main e-commerce sites, which is keystroke.ca, linktivity.net, and webplanner.com, so that people don't have to kind of sign up for each, okay? But if you don't see that, let us know and we'll make sure it gets updated. Now, so we've seen that, and now these are all the ones that I've got, but just imagine that you're a user and you don't have any here, and you've got yourself a customer that's interested, so you want to buy it for them, okay, at the wholesale rate and charge them whatever, okay? So we're going to click on add new subscription. Now, here's where you've got the ability to add as many as you like. Okay, and you can see that you've already been discounted from 40 down or 60 down to 45, and then you click on checkout with PayPal. Now, why are we using PayPal? Because we're a Canadian company, and we have our biggest customer is in Europe for Linktivity, and we just want to avoid our main payment provider is Canadian, and we don't want to have any cross-border issues. Now, having said all of that, this particular service, when you click on checkout with PayPal, it does not require a PayPal account. You can basically use a guest setup and just charge your credit card per normal. Okay, so you don't have to create a PayPal account to sell or use our services. Okay, it was just we paid a slightly higher rate just to avoid some of the issues with processing. Okay, so I'm going to click on cancel. Now, once you purchase, you're going to get subscriptions here that say assign. Okay, when they say unassigned, they've obviously already been applied. Okay, now when you've got assigned subscriptions, so these are kind of like your inventory, a couple of things to note. You'll see that the renewal date stays fixed. So do not buy a lot of inventory for these things. It doesn't work like handheld contact. The expiry date is fixed. So if you buy them in inventory, you may buy 52 weeks worth of subscription, but if it takes you 2 weeks to apply them, the customer's only going to get 50 weeks. Okay, so really kind of buy them as needed. Now, the second thing is that when you apply this to one of your customers, they have to have a trial account set up. Okay, you cannot apply a subscription to someone that doesn't at least have a trial account set up. So tell them to go in to linktivity.net, set up a trial account, and then once that's done, then you can assign a subscription to them. And I'll just show you how that works. So here's the email of my wife here, okay, and I'm gonna try to assign it to someone. I'm gonna try to assign it to her, but I'm gonna misspell her email. Okay, I'm gonna click on assign, and it's immediately going to tell me that that email doesn't exist. Okay, if I take out the E and apply it, I'm not going to because it's already there. Okay, then it will show up and it's going to show me that this has been applied. Okay, now I did this 2 weeks ago in another demo. Okay, actually a little bit more than 2 weeks ago, another demo, and I applied the subscription and she's good till January 6, 22. Okay, be careful not to assign it on top of another subscription unless it's expired, okay, because it will overwrite. So you don't want to eliminate any paid time, okay? We can't have it set up with the system that we built where it queues it, okay? And then automatically kicks in when the first one expires. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover on subscriptions.
Okay, Ken, before you move on, can you there's a couple of questions there about branding.
Yep, okay, so let me just see what they are. Okay, so I see Paul saying customer branding. The customer branding is going to be, I'm going to cover that where I showed you already the logo, okay? So the logo will display on the page that you display, okay? And that logo, if you want the maximum effect, we recommend like a landscape logo, okay? That will cover more space. I opted for our little orange circle, so it's, you know, subtle and doesn't dominate too much. Okay, but in terms of the emails going out, okay, yeah, those can't be branded for reasons I already mentioned. But under general settings, that's where you put it. Now I see Tamara. Yes, customers can use their own logo. Okay, I think that covers it. So I'm going to go back here. Okay, so now I'm in the Link2calendar. Now the second that I'm in here, I want to show you. Here is where this is your magic URL is, okay? So copy this. Now, obviously, you're not going to put this, you know, in a on a website or anything. You're obviously going to use it as a hyperlink and put like click here and then embed this behind it, okay? But what you can customize then is, you remember when I had the answer page come up? You can say, you can customize that here. And then what you can do is you can even have an additional image here if you wanted to brand it specifically at this point. So answering some of the questions, remember I said that there was under the general settings, you had that image that would override all others if there was nothing else selected. Well, in this case, you can select it, and any of the program specific logos will always override the general one. Okay, so in this case, I'm not going to add a logo because I already like the logo that I've got there. Okay, and so that's the basic sections. Now, if you have any trouble, you know, we've got fairly extensive help here, okay, in every single section. Okay, now let's go to the calendar settings. Now the calendar settings are very, very straightforward. You know, what are your hours of work? 9 to 5, kind of standard. Now the activity types, you saw how I had a drop down of call and conference call. Well, in this case, I can select from any one of the activities. Because the API has a connection to the database, that drop down of custom activities is available to me instantly. Okay, multiple time slots. This was actually something that was requested over the course of how Book to Act and then Link2calendar evolved. People wanted to be able to book multiple time slots. So I've enabled this feature, okay? Now, required fields. So you saw the form that people have to fill out to book an appointment. One of the things that quickly became apparent is I just needed their name, their phone number, because I can't call them back otherwise. I want to hear what they want to call me about, or what they want me to call them about. Okay. Email, I don't even put in the email as an option because the email is how we're connecting to the database and finding the contacts with, okay? So we're not even gonna allow people to deselect that. So one of the things I quickly discovered is company was cumbersome because I may have people that are unaffiliated with a company, they may be personal services and they don't go by a specific corporate branding. So that actually caused some grief with people. So I deselect that. And then the details, because quite frankly, as long as they put in the description, I could probably suss out the rest. Okay, and then the available settings. So what days do I want? You know, standard selections Monday through Friday. If you're more in the service business and you've got weekend work, then that's available. And here is the checkbox that I told you guys about, where you can select the ability to display the exact same day. Now, I can't stress enough that that's something I need people to think about very carefully, because if you have someone, like let's say that, you know, it's 2 o'clock and you've got 3 hours left of your day, you may very well not put in your calendar that you're preparing for, say, a presentation like this, and all of a sudden, boom, you've got someone at 2:30 booking a time with you. Okay, and that's challenging when it can come in that fast. Okay, so, you know, decide whether or not that kind of works with how you do business, and, you know, you enable or disable that feature accordingly. Now, I do have a question: is the calendar based on the working day and time settings in ACT? I think, is this a time zone question? Because the time zone is set within Linktivity, so it should come across and translated accordingly. Okay. or constrained by. Sorry, Dwayne, I'm not sure I'm understanding, but it, obviously there's a certain time zone set with ACT, okay, and there's a time zone set with this, so it will translate it accordingly, okay, even from your area of the world, okay, which is about as much that we want to test it, okay. Now, then the next one is the appointment settings. So as I said, I set my meeting duration to be 30 minutes. Now, I then set my meeting buffer time to be 15. Now, I want to be clear. When we set this up, I actually initially misunderstood it, where I thought, okay, my day is going to be divided into 45-minute increments, right? Doesn't work that way. So what that means is that your meeting durations that people can select are 30 minutes, but no one can book more than or less than 15 minutes apart from another booked appointment. So if you've got a meeting that ends at 2 o'clock, the earliest someone that can book with is 2:30, because I've set up 30-minute increments. Okay, so that 15-minute buffer means that I'm not going to have hard caps where one call bleeds into the next. Okay. So that's all there's one on that. Allowed number of months in the future. Now, this is something that once we put it in, we hadn't thought of this, but once we put it into action, we realized we didn't want people booking more than, say, 6 months in the future. Can you imagine if you've got someone that booked something and it's like 7 months in the future, and suddenly you're planning your holidays around some appointment that someone set up online? So we wanted to kind of fix how far into the future people can book our time. Now, 6 is probably even more than I think is prudent, but I've just kind of gone with that default. Okay. Allow alarm enabled. Obviously, when you create an appointment, you want to have the alarm, and then the duration as 5 minutes in advance, and then the location. Now, again, the location is more for ICS files that always request what the location is, and then obviously that will come over in the activity creation. And then the blacklist. So a lot of this stuff is the same as people that have been using this before, but I'm excited to show some of the new settings here. Okay, so blacklist. So in the past, when you created a blacklist, you would have to kind of, if you were on a 2-week vacation, it was rather tedious. You actually had to blacklist 14 straight days, okay, or at least the working days. Now, when you set this up, I'm going to say, let's just say Black Friday week, okay? And I'm gonna say you've got the choice of no recurring, daily recurring. Now, daily recurring obviously is gonna be things like, no one schedules it in ACT their lunchtime, but if I allowed people, you wouldn't believe the number of people that seem to magically book during my lunch hour. Okay, so I've set up a blacklist for my lunch. I'm pointing at the screen like you guys can see, but this is where lunch over here. Okay, you may want to take daily walks, that kind of thing, whichever. And then weekly, same kind of thing. You can select the days where you may have, let's say that on Mondays you come in at noon, or Fridays you leave early. Okay. Then you can set up those kind of recurring blacklists. But what we're going to do is we're going to select a one-off, and I'm going to say November, and I'm going to say here, and then I'm going to say through here. Okay, I don't really need to select the, okay, I'm going to say actually, then AM, okay? And because I'm putting, this was on a weekday, so I wanna make sure that it's covered on 9 a.m. This is ending on a weekend, so I really don't care what time it is. And now I click on here and click on save. Okay, and now that blacklist is enabled, okay? Nice and simple. Okay, I see James answered, let's see, okay, so Dwayne, if you have any questions relating to that, you can ping me after the meeting, but now I wanna get into the managed teams, okay? Because this is really one of the bigger differences. I showed you what it looks like from the customer experience. Let's see what it looks like, the actual mechanics of it. So when I click on Manage Teams, now the first thing you would do is say create a team. Because this process uses invitations, which would make for a bad demo waiting for people to reply, I've already created a team, which I demonstrated, and now we're just going to click on Edit. Okay, so when you add a member, okay, what it does is it will actually, I'll just click on here. Okay, you put in the person's email address, and then what it does is it sends out an invitation. Okay, they are not added to the team until they accept that invitation. Okay, so that's an important thing. Now, obviously, you cannot invite people that don't have an account. Okay, they have to have a Link2calendar account. This is not some way of circumventing subscriptions. They have to have a subscription. It doesn't cost any extra. Okay, it's just aggregating existing subscriptions, so everyone's going to be responsible for maintaining their own. What I would suggest is that obviously, once you start, like in this case, James and Paul and Sylvia and myself, what it would make more sense is during the course of that, that subscription period, I would probably bring all of their accounts under my management so I can make sure that they are renewed on time. Okay, so now if I don't do anything, so that's what it will look like if all 4 of these people accept it, or 3, since obviously it's going to accept mine. Okay, now if I don't do anything, you saw when I clicked on the calendar, a nice little picture popped up and it showed email and everything like that. But if I don't do anything, okay, then this is what it's going to look like on the screen. Okay, it's going to say undefined picture, undefined person, undefined rep, undefined description. Okay, so the second you see that, you know that, wow, that's kind of a crappy visual. Okay, so that's why you have to go in and click on Edit. Okay, now this is where you put in the information, standard, nothing surprising here. You can put, I mean, we've created a rather big memo box, probably bigger than is practical. Okay, but just keep in mind that if you put in a whole lot of descriptions and other people don't, it's going to look a little imbalanced. Okay, this is where you select the photo for each person. I'm going to recommend that you have some kind of consistent photo format, and what I mean by that is have like what we've done is we've incorporated little circles, but keep them the same dimensions, like keep them square, keep them the same pixel width and height. Okay, so that they look clean on the calendar. But that's it. That's it. So you set these guys up. So you go through, you click on Save. Okay, and each one is going to look the exact same, and you just set up the different images, and you saw how nice that looked. Okay, when it was set up. Now you can see here, I've named it the sales team. Here is again the URL. I can just copy it and then go here, and it's going to load that same calendar we saw before. Okay, now let me pause. We're about 40 minutes in. So as I said, now you can see the different sales reps. Okay, just like I showed you before. So let me pause and see if there are any additional questions. There's Paul on branding. Okay, can you clarify where then does the customer logo appear? Or perhaps the customer's logo would appear in the email confirmation. No, the email branding, as I said before, deliverability is more important than branding in this case because they're meeting confirmations. So we keep them strictly text. And once they're text, obviously you can't incorporate any images or anything like that. Okay, but in pages like this, okay, we've eliminated the branding on this just because it's a team one, but on the individual ones, you can incorporate your own brand. Okay, so where does the customer's logo appear? Customer as in, I'm not following. You mean the actual subscriber? Yes,
in the general settings, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the general settings. If you set it there, it will kind of apply to all the different Linktivity settings, and then you can override them in the specific program settings as I've shown you. okay? So I think we've covered most of it, about 40 minutes. So, you know, as you can see, it's very, very easy to manage from a subscription standpoint. If you're a reseller, you get an automatic discount. Okay, you get automatic wholesale rates. You can manage all of your customers in one spot. You can renew them, revoke you know, a member if for any reason that they haven't paid or anything like that. You can manage it quite nicely all from your, and we tried to model that as much as we could under the, you know, the very popular handheld contact model of kind of a central portal where you can manage all of your customers. Okay, now if there are no questions on this, I just want to show one quick little surprise that we've been working on. And this is a product called Quick Tasks for Act. Now it's still in beta, so I'm not going to push it too much because I don't want to see it blow up if there are issues. But basically what we wanted to do is we wanted to build a tool that, like Linktivity, works with the API. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people on this call that are going to say, wow, this looks like Scratchpad. Scratchpad, as you remember, works only with the local database. It also didn't work with terminal services. It also required Act to be installed. So it wouldn't work with SaaS, okay? So what we built is kind of our own version of Scratchpad, except it does a lot more. Now, what I find is that I'm often typing up like 10 to 20 different quick tasks that I want to do through the course of the day, okay? So I'll say review meeting with Vic, okay? Hit enter, and then I'll have call Michael at end of day, okay? And I can just, you know, punch in a whole bunch of quick items, but we also wanted it to be a you know, a tool for kind of light project management. So let's say that I wanted to say, let's say marketing. And then I'm going to say send out newsletter, start a call campaign. Okay, change homepage. Okay, several quick things. Now, I want all of these to be nested. So what I can do is I can just say here, here, and here. So now what I've done is I've created a task along with a number of subtasks. And if I need to kind of move them up and down, I've got the up and down arrows, okay? But now let's say I want to send these to Act. I simply click, all of these get sent here, 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 okay? This is garbage, so I'm not going to select that, okay? And now I'm going to click on send to Act. Now remember, I don't even need, okay? In this case, so what you can do is you've got the option of selecting which user you want to assign them to, okay? You also have got the option of setting different times. So you can set the time, date, but this is not something that we recommend a whole lot because we want it to be fast, okay? But if you are an administrator or a manager and you want to assign a lot of tasks at once, okay, then what you want to do is you want to just hammer these out, okay? And I'm going to say marketing here. I'm going to keep all these marketing tasks under one, and I'm going to click on send, and I'm going to select Carlos, and I'm going to click on send, okay? And then they will go out. Come on. Okay, and let's see. I'm going to chug out. So the first one went, and then you could see them slowly chug out after that. Okay, as I said, this is in beta, so they will come across. Okay, we did have some stalling out issues, and like I said, I kind of wanted to just show you this in beta. Okay, so that you guys can see it, and then what I can do is I can move this on over to the page and bring over my calendar. Okay. Okay, and go to task lists. And now I'm going to select Carlos. Okay, and let's see, we've got review marketing agenda, weekly process deliverables. Let me just make sure that this is refreshed. Okay, and let's make sure that, okay. Let me try my own. Let's see if it came over. This is always fun when you're working with beta products. Okay, and then I select today. Okay, so this came over and was connected to mine. So we'll get some feedback to provide our developers here. Okay, but you see here that what it did was it sent over the category, okay? But instead of just coming over with a category that's kind of pointless, what it did is it put curly brackets and then it put the subtask here. So the point of that is if you have a bunch of subtasks under one category, then you click on here and they would automatically group together because they're prefaced with the with that in this case the category marketing bracketed by the curly brackets. Okay, and that is quick tasks. So I wanted to just quickly show you guys that. We'll have more on that in the coming weeks as we do the final beta testing, but it's something that I think a lot of people have kind of a task list orientation and they don't want to necessarily fire up Act or log into the web. This launches very quickly and you can hammer out 20 tasks in the time it might take to create one or two in Act. And I think a lot of people will kind of like that, the simplicity of workflow and the fact that it goes directly to the database and you can also assign it to different users. Okay, so I'm going to check. I don't see any other questions. Okay, so perfect. Vic, did you want to cover anything?
No, everything's been covered. Great job, Ken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll let everyone back. Hold on, it says one more question. Can you give us a quick demo or just verbal description of the setup process of is that for quick tasks? Yes or no? Okay, I'm going to assume. Task expectations of time for task to count. It's instant. Okay, so let's go to the setup of this. If you go to the preferences, here is again the API settings. Now we did set it up so you can work with local SDK for those people that still love the Scratchpad feature. Okay, and then here's all your API settings. Save the connections. Okay, and then it's actually got the user account, which is currently 57. But what it will do is we'll save that, and then if you add a bunch of people to your team, then you just click on refresh users, and then that will bring up the current list so that you can you don't have to wait for a separate call to the database. And then under here, you've got the email settings. Hold on one second. Sweetie, I'm in the middle of a demo, but your iPad's over there. Okay. It is bring your child to work day. Okay. So then you just click on email and you got the email settings. I didn't realize how long this would take, but then under here, you would put in all your SMTP settings. So if emails need to go up, because when you do assign something to someone, they will be notified of email, because otherwise if it just goes to their calendar and they're not alerted by email, then it can get missed. Especially, I sent something over to Carlos. Carlos is a Mac user and doesn't go into to Act very quickly, okay? 45 minutes, I'm not sure I understand that. The going out to Act is pretty much instant, okay?
No, he's asking about setup time, I think.
Oh, the setup time for quick tasks?
Or Link2calendar.
Oh, Link2calendar? Yeah. Link2calendar is, again, like 5 minutes. You got, once you get past the, the API settings and your calendar settings, like there's not a whole lot of figuring out of what your days are. I mean, I think that the first round of setups you're going to probably go with the default settings, and then you may calibrate it over time what works for you. Like I said, this 6 months, that's the default. you may very quickly realize, I don't want anyone booking 6 months in advance. 3 is more than enough. And then you may realize, okay, I don't want people booking through lunches. So you can set up different blacklists, okay, for lunches and things like that. So, but the default setup, maybe 5 minutes, okay, especially during the trial process. So it's very fast.
Yeah, when I've set this up for a number of resellers, Paul, and usually once we get the API in there, 5 minutes, even if they make all kinds of changes, 10 minutes for setup. And it won't take much longer with your clients unless you take time to explain it to them as you go. But the setup itself is, if it takes 10 minutes, that's about 3 minutes too long.
So one of the things that that made me think this was, I mean, we'd already planned to make Link2calendar the product of the month anyway, but one of the things that I was reminded of is on Act Nation, one of the ACCs posted, you know, how do we get like who provides integration with Calendly, or can we link it up through Zapier? And Billy Clark, who's our most experienced Zapier guy, very quickly kind of shot that down and said, no, the Zapier integration with that is very, very weak and limited. So, you know, that kind of gave rise for me to say, well, remember everyone, there is a fully integrated calendar service that is only $5 a month, okay, which is cheaper than any of the other services, and it's fully integrated. You don't have to build it on top of anything. You don't have to bolt it onto Zapier. It doesn't integrate with some other third party to connect with Act. It's directly with Act. Okay, so hopefully everyone gets a chance to test it. If you are a authorized KQC reseller, then you are of course entitled to get a free NFR. Please contact Vic about that, and he'll get you set up, and then enjoy. We know that once you guys start using it and put it in your email signatures, put it in your social medias, on any other kind of digital space that you manage, you're going to feel the effect of it. I remember one of our KPPs, who shall remain nameless, emailed me, I think like a month after he set it up, and he literally said he couldn't imagine operating without Link2calendar now, because every single email that he goes out, and there's no more email ping pong back and forth. Is this day good for you? Is that day good for you? He just says, pick a time, you know, book an appointment with me. Oh, and there's Steve. You know, Steve McCandless, he was the one. I'm going to out you, Steve. Steve was the one that said it, and you know, customers love it. Nothing frustrates a customer more than creating friction between them wanting to meet you and when they can meet you. This, you know, eliminates a lot of the friction on that, and they end up being able to set up an appointment with you as quickly as humanly possible without the email ping pong or you know, the phone tag. Okay, so thanks for jumping in there, Steve. Nervous always about the stability of the API. Okay, well, you're giving me a chance to self-promote again. I was too. The 32-bit version of the API does have a 2 gig limit. Now, if you are a single user, okay, or you've got a small team of 2 or 3 people, it's unlikely that you're going to break it, okay? But when you've got 40, 50 users like we do, and a lot of them are using handheld contact, a lot of them are using a number of Linktivity products, Act for Mail, and things like that, I can tell you the API will overload very quickly. Okay, which is why our CTO was so committed to kind of cracking the code and providing 64-bit capability with this. So any one of our ACC resellers out there that is in a hosted environment, we're not allowed to just distribute it, but is in a hosted environment, then we will share that's the setup instructions for the 64-bit API, with the caveat, okay, that any updates they may have to run set it up again, okay? But we've got it working perfectly, and we've had it running for about 3 weeks now. I've got to tell you, when we were running the 32-bit API, and I made that announcement on Act Nation, when we were running the 32-bit API, we had to kick this out of the Coke machine about 3 times a week to get the API restarted, okay? It's been running 3 weeks. In one case, I did download alls with 3 separate devices on handheld contact, all around 50,000. I was doing them concurrently, okay? And I couldn't crash it. Okay, and that was, you know, literally 150,000 contacts in a span of about 10 minutes, and we monitored it. It never got over 1 gig. Kick this out of the code machine. That Dwayne, I may just steal and claim as my own. That's good. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up here. and let everyone get back to their day. But thank you very much for your time. I want to wrap up before the hour is up. But thank you very much. I think we had a lot of good questions. We covered a lot. Gave you a sneak peek of a program that we've got coming out. But please, all of you guys are resellers. Take advantage of the NFR relationships that you've got with us. Try Link2calendar, try Link2events, try to Link2list. Try all of these, and you will definitely really start enjoying and having faith in the product again. Because one of the things, and this is what I keep mentioning to people, and it's never going to be more true than this year. We're going to have a lot of people that are questioning their commitment to ACT. Okay, wouldn't it be terrible if we lost a customer because they thought they couldn't get the integration to a service like Calendly or a service like Link2List with list scrubbing, or full event management, or even quoting as we're going to provide? You've got to get familiar with this so that you guys can answer the questions and reassure people that they can have a complete experience, because a lot of people, you only have to lose them once and they don't come back. Okay, and they may think, well, I'm going to go to another product that provides this. You don't have to let them leave. Okay, and we're going to have a lot of challenges with renewals this year, especially with increasing prices. Make sure that you've got all the clubs in your bag available to have the highest retention possible. Okay, so with that said, I'll let everyone go. Thank you very much and have a great day.